right.
So hello, and welcome to our show, The Awakening, on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo and the Going Bold Network. My name is Tina Huggins. I'm your divorce coach specialist and restorative family mediator. This is Joe Huggins. And today we're graced with Amy Blair Lawson. Let me make sure I read my notes, just go from memory here. Amy Blair Lawson got the distinctions of MBA and CDFA. Amy is with the Lawson Financial Group, and her work is divorce financial planning and rapid transformational therapy. That's where we're going to find some difference today. She's also the author of the book, The Gray Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce. So for those of you who don't know what a CDFA is a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. And anytime that you're dealing with divorce money or divorce anything for that matter, you really want to look at those who have been certified in divorce. Instead of just going through your normal financial planner, having a divorce financial analyst is a way better person to look at the finances in the divorce. And today, Amy's got, like I just said, that she's got this rapid transformational therapy. That's something that other CDFAs don't have. So she's going to kind of explain a little bit about her work to us, and so that we have a better understanding. So Amy, take it away.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's my honor to be here. Yeah, as Tina said, I am a certified divorce financial analyst, and I am I do specialize in the finances around divorce. And what's different from a CDFA and other financial planners is the training. We have much more intense training, especially around the areas of pension valuations. I don't know if any of you have pensions, but if you do and your spouse has a pension, you go through the divorce, it's so typical. The spouse with the pension will say to the other spouse, oh, I'll keep my pension and you take this, this, and this. And the big issue is the pension statement has a really low number on it, and that pension is worth so much more. So that just gives you a little tidbit about the specialized training of a CDFA. You're right, I do differ from other CDFAs in that I'm also a rapid transformational therapy practitioner, and that's better known as RTT. And so as we know in life, what we tell ourselves about ourselves impacts our choices. So when you're going through anything in life, but especially divorce, you got to have your mindset right, because 1 second you can be so clear and think, I've got this. And the next second you can be in a corner freaking out, literally going, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So we got it with RTT. It helps me get to the root of the underlying negative belief or negative thought that keeps someone stuck in that place. Because if you don't believe that you're worthy of good things, you're going to make decisions in the divorce process that are really going to create a negative financial impact for the future. So in my opinion, RTT could change the entire face of the divorce process if we can keep our clients out of that swirl, right? If they walk into that process clear about who they are, knowing that they are enough, they won't be manipulated as easily, and they will not agree to something because no one's going to bully them at that point. They know they're enough and they're not going to be bullied.
So that's good. So in the process of that, I know when we talked last time, I was like, oh, this would be great for those people who have been through financial abuse, because there's so many types and aspects to financial abuse. And so Joe, actually, he's been over here making notes for an hour now. So he's got some things that the three of us can kind of talk about. So Joe, if you kind of want to.
Sure. Okay. So this is part of it. There's 20 some years that actually financial abuse happened. So there was a lot of abuse. She was the CFO of our carpet store. So I was, let's just say, the laborer and the sales guy. And so I'd sell carpet, I'd measure it, I'd do all these things. hand in the paperwork to my ex. And then she would do her stuff with it. And she was like the bookkeeper, accountant, CFO. So she'd pay bills and that kind of stuff. And she would set up everything automatic. And I'm prehistoric when it comes to automatic anything. I still write checks because I love that hard copy paper, and then I staple it, put it in my file thing. So I'm just the opposite of what she was. So going through that, you know, and this is when we were kind of getting along in the marriage, and I'd ask her a question like, so how are we doing cash flow? So, you know, I know how much merchandise to buy and that kind of stuff. And she would snap back and say, I don't know, I don't have that information in front of me. Well, the store was a pretty small store to where you always know what's going on if that's your job. You know, just like I know what's going on with all my customers, my clients, and my installers, and the products coming in and out. I knew that, you know, like the back of my hand. And she knew the finances like the back of her hand too, but what she is doing is hiding stuff, and I found that out later. So that's why she is so defensive and snapped. And it's like, so that's a huge red flag to people out there, that if it's not transparent and somebody's defensive, huge red flag. And I found out the hard way. I would just go, I don't want any of this controversy, this argument. So I just shut down. So I just do my job and forget about the rest, and which is no way to run the business, but it sure beats going home and having arguments sometimes. If I had it to do over again, it'd be completely different. So I went to school of hard knocks on that one. So
do you have any insights on that one, Amy?
Yeah, I would think the first thing is you trusted her, number one. So don't beat yourself up for trusting her. She was your wife, and she had a skill set that you didn't have, and those skill sets were complementary. Though you did learn the lesson, as you said, the hard way, and that is you did not have those conversations ongoing, because it's difficult enough. Marriage alone is difficult, but when you work with somebody, it's even more difficult, because you have to have interests outside of that marriage, right? But when you come home at night, you got to talk about the work stuff too. So I'm glad to hear that you are saying, gosh, I kind of contributed by not having those tough conversations, because everybody knows we all contribute to whatever's going wrong, even if our intentions are to just get along, right? We don't want to have those sticky conversations, but you have to have those sticky conversations. I wrote a blog about what it's like to be married, and I use the analogy of a ribbon. So, Joe, here's your ribbon, and you tie a knot in the ribbon for how many years you've been alive, how many problems you've had, right? If you've gone through any kind of major illness, what kind of religious impacts you have on your beliefs, have on your marriage, and you do the same ribbon for her. Well, then you take those ribbons and you knot those ribbons together, right? How many years you've been married? What kind of troubles you have in your marriage? And you end up with this matted mess.
Right.
And that's what it's like to be married and in business. And that doesn't mean it can't work, right? But if you've got somebody who has that almost bullying personality, which it sounds like she may have had that bullying type of personality,
100%.
Had to be in control, that makes those of us who really don't like drama to try to back up and go, I really don't like drama here. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yeah. She was, I'm going to say, a big bully, you know, just, and I'm going to call her a narcissist, extreme, and, you know, a couple other descriptions in there that are, you know, we don't need to go into those, but severe narcissist, have to be in control. And if you ever ask her a question that she felt defensive, look out, because the wild monkeys are coming. I mean, it's not worth it.
Well, you said the right thing too. Transparency is important. And if you ask just a general question in your marriage, particularly about your business, if you're in business together, or about money, and you get anything other than, oh yeah, let me get that. Yeah, I kind of think it's this, but let me go check and I'll be right back in 5 minutes or whatever. Right. Yeah, that's a huge red flag. And it's really easy to ignore red flags because, you know, we all have bad days sometime, right? And we want to think, well, maybe it's just a bad day. But boy, when those bad days are linked together, and before you know it, you're up to here and you don't know how to get out of it without, going, oh shit, what am I going to do now? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was over at that time, but with all the kids that we had and that kind of stuff, I'm invested in the kids, number one. So
Sure.
I was always in between a rock and a hard place, or two rocks, and I was in the middle of two rocks,
Sure.
So, and finances are huge in a marriage, let alone a narcissist that you got to deal with. And then it makes raising 6 kids a cakewalk. Gravy.
Two sets of twins.
Like they saved my life. That's how easy it was with them. They understood a lot of what their mom, was doing, and, kind of mental and that kind of stuff. And you could never get even a half inch with her. So that just describes the challenge, to say that. So, and here's another financial abuse is when we were going through the divorce, it took how many years?
7 years from filing to end.
Wow. Yeah. So when her and I were not getting along, she goes, fine, you just take everything, as far as the books, the work, the accounting, everything. Well, I'm not a computer guy. I can get on the computer, but I'm not going to do all this QuickBooks and all that stuff. So, because that's a job in itself. So what I did is just manually wrote the check. Somehow I dug in and found all this stuff that I needed to pay because everything was automated. So I had to go prehistoric, and we had lots of rentals and that kind of stuff. And then with our suppliers and that kind of stuff, I had to figure that out, and which I did. And I had a great 4-year running once I got everything my way. I had all the rentals going. I had the stores making money. And then the almighty judge came in and goes, Joe, I don't want you running. The judge said to her, I want you to run the rental business. Well, here's a woman that said she's going to bankrupt me. She's going to make me fall flat on my face. Now she's in charge of all the rentals. And it's a lot to put you under quick. So immediately what she did is kicked out about half of the tenants. And then the other half that were there that could be a good cash source, she started collecting cash. And then, putting a little in, putting a little over here, that kind of stuff. And I had proof of that. But our court case was so stressful, I didn't even go through that, did I, with the cash? There's no way for me to actually, in my world, to prove that. And I brought that up to my lawyer that we need to pull records from all of her bank accounts, subpoena them. And I'm here all stressed out, and I still come up with a great idea. And the by that time, the lawyer says, if we do that, she's just going to move money around and we'll never find it. Well, that's false, as you know. Yes, but I was so stressed. Tina was so stressed with everything going on that we had enough. So we let it go. So that's what's so important to the viewers out there. Don't take it on yourself. Get professional people like Amy, like Tina, and because I'm living proof, barely living proof, barely lived through it financially and with a heartbeat and that kind of stuff, barely made it through. So that it's life and death.
It really is. And plus, by the time you go through this, for those of you that are listening, you are so worn down, right? Mm-hmm. You're so weary from even prior to divorce, trying to make your marriage work and your business work if you're married, and if you're married to your business partner. You're so weary by the time you get to the divorce, you don't have the fight in you to do someone else's job, right? And another thing you have to understand is the narcissist will never, 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 never change. They will never, never, never try to be fair. And when you call them out, they act like you're calling them out as the offense as opposed to what they actually did. So if we can talk about hidden money for a second, people try to hide money all the time. And one way to find hidden money, well, there's a couple ways, but what I like to do is go through the bank statements, look at the credit card statements, and look at how they're living. Someone can say they only make $75,000 a year, but if they have a $200,000 a year life, woohoo, hello, judge. That's called a lifestyle analysis, right? There's also things you can look at. You can look at tax records. I've had clients who didn't know their husband had a motorcycle or a boat. They're like, what do you mean? Where do you park the motorcycle? What motorcycle? They pay any kind of asset like that, they pay taxes on in the county where they live. Look at property taxes. They can't lie if they're paying property tax on a boat or a Harley or whatever the toy is, the toy du jour, you know? So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we see this. So way back, when he was going through this, I was not certified at that point. And this is a key point for all of you viewers of why I say that a CDFA is so important, because his attorney hired a CPA at $400 an hour to go through his books. And nothing was found, nothing was done. I sat through like a 5-hour meeting with them, and absolutely nothing was accomplished in that meeting. She made notes, and then she got up and she testified to what was there, but not even the judge really gave a crap to her testimony, because there was no hard proof of the things that a CDFA can find.
That's so true. I settled a case about 3 years ago. The couple had been married for, oh my gosh, I think their youngest kid was 35, 3 children, 2 were special needs. So her children were adults, right? And they had amassed a decent fortune, but her life had been centered on taking care of these special needs, now adult children. And so, wow, what I was able to show by looking at the credit card statements was when the affair started. Because this is what he did. Let's say Tuesday. Every Tuesday, there were two tanks of gas charged at a convenience store in a snack. 2 days later, 2 tanks of gas in a snack at a convenience store. That's when it all started. This thing went on for years, right? Years. Then I started noticing, we had the bank records subpoenaed, both personal and the business accounts. So they had 2 LLCs. They ran one super clean, and the other they ran it like a bank account. So what he was doing was he was taking less out of the LLC and putting even less of that into the joint bank account. So I mean, he was pocketing, he was skimming right from that, right? And then he was writing out an increasing number of counter checks to cash. It was all there. So he was paying them less and less, but drawing more and more and more of it out. Yeah. Clear.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yes.
You know, that,
yes.
Right. So, more financial abuse. I'd get home from work. This is when we were getting along, if you want to look at it that way. And one time she met me at the top of the stairs. I just came in the door. We had a bi-level. And so it's just 6 stairs down. But she, very defensive. I came in, she's like, where's all the money? And I go, I don't know. I'm working every day, because I'd work Christmas Eve. I'd work Memorial Weekend, Labor Day weekend, 4th of July. I mean, you name it. And I was working. And that's what I told her. I said, I don't know. I'm working every day. Plus, she's a CFO. She ought to know where the money's at.
Right.
Another red flag. And she was all the time putting money in her account since 2012, I think is and I found a bank statement, and she had over $127,000 cash in her account with her name on it only, of course. And I found that on my way out of the marriage house, when I thought, I don't have anything to lose. I'm going to go through, look in her office, because I never did that, because you're not supposed to with your spouse, but when things are getting ugly, you better protect yourself. And so I found that. And then in court later, she just said, cost of living, I spent it all, and my lawyer didn't even go, well, we need proof of all those receipts. It was like a 2-second ordeal. Well, okay, wash your hands and let's move on. All the while, and I'd even shut down the shop, run into my lawyer and say, now tell me that I'm going to get my piece of the pie because I got this proof. And he goes, oh yeah, in permanent orders, you'll get yours. Well, I got mine already, all right, by them not giving me the money. I you know what I mean? So I did not get it. And she just said cost of living. So you know, the lawyer I had was terrible.
Yes, you have to remember that not all lawyers are financial people. They love the law, perhaps, and I'm not trying to lawyer bash, but some just are not good at finances and they want it all to be smooth and simple, and they're not willing or maybe not able to look really deep at it, because you have to do the deep dive. You have to get in the weeds and look at those numbers, because we know, especially if you're dealing with a narcissist, they will look you right in your face and tell you the biggest lie. Mm-hmm. And they do it so sincerely. And there's a part of you that wants to believe them because it was probably a part of your marriage that was so good, right? You thought this was the dream girl. You didn't realize you're walking into a nightmare until it turned into a nightmare.
Well, so, talking about the lie that you said to look right at you, yes. I called her on the statement and I said, what's this? And she goes, you knew about that. So there's the biggest lie. And I said, if I knew about that, I'd be doing the Irish dance, mm-hmm. which, you know, just the saying I had, but you know, it was horrible financial abuse. And now is this part of the abuse? I mean, it is. We're talking about financial.
Whoever controls the money, there's always someone who has more power in the marriage, mm-hmm. whether it's someone loves someone more than the other, but usually it lies in who controls the money, who doesn't necessarily make it, but who controls it. So in your case, Joe, you were out there bringing in that money, right? You were the one generating that revenue.
Yeah.
But your now ex was the one controlling it.
100%.
And yes, so that's the big old red flag. You never let anybody control your money.
I learned
that is the one thing most of my clients will say, if they had to go back and do it all again, they would always have their own money. They would never just stop working completely. They would always be doing something to keep their foot in the door out there in that world, the business world. And they would have monthly meetings about, this is how much we have, this is what we have, this is what has to go out, this is what we're planning for.
Sounds like a healthy marriage to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Healthy marriage, good communication.
Right. Yeah.
So our relationship is very opposite of his last relationship. So and the funny thing, you mentioned motorcycles and boats, because during his divorce aspect, my mom had died just before I met him, and she left us kids with a chunk of change. And so it was interesting how my brother and sister and I spent that money. We all almost spent everything exactly the same. I bought a motorcycle. My sister bought a four-wheeler. But in the process of that, she tried to say that motorcycle was his motorcycle. And I had the money and the means, and we took care of that. And my brother did something very similar, only he bought a car for his youngest daughter. So it was just kind of interesting how everybody saw abuse, and the only thing that was really being abused at that point was all the money that she had taken and lied to him, not just the one time, but many, many times. I have a handful of little thumb drives where she apparently, as near as I can tell from listening to the thumb drives, she had her computer in front of her all the time, and it was always recording, because I have hundreds just in this little handful of conversations that she had with people where she was recording everything. I could hear the, not so much the financial abuse part, but she would belittle the kids. Mm-hmm. And things that a good person, a good mom especially, wouldn't do.
Right.
But when I went through, and this will be something that you can kind of hit on, when I went through the books, because I ended up doing paper investigation for his attorney, and I am not a numbers person. So I'm going through this and I'm trying to count banks, and anywhere between 20 some banks to 32 bank accounts, whether that's credit cards or banks. And I could see that she was pulling some money here. She'd spend all day long doing this. She'd pull money from this bank, put it over here, pull a different amount and put it in another bank. And she'd do that all day long, every day. So, I mean, there was hundreds of transactions. So to follow that, yeah, the CPA couldn't do that at all.
No, because think about it. A CPA, they're all about reporting. Their whole thing is reporting to the IRS. And I mean, I have a good relationship with some CPAs, right? But I just use them to bounce my questions off of things I already think I know the answer to. Case in point, this case I was telling you about with the two LLCs and with the, you know, I could tell when the affair started. One thing is I look at the tax returns of the couple and I pour over them with a fine tooth comb. When things don't make sense, I reach out to the CPA and see, I'm not a CPA, which I use that to my favor. Then I can ask really stupid questions and they discount my intelligence, right? Because if I was a CPA, I should already know the answer. So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, I'll let my client's attorney know, look, I'm going to just throw some real softball questions here because I think the CPA, something's wrong with this tax return. Doesn't make any sense to me. So this case in point, what I suspected was the CPA did not use the bank statements to reconcile. So report it, which is you must do in a business with the IRS, because the numbers didn't make sense. The reported numbers and the bank statements, they don't jive. So it took like, I don't know, maybe 5 rounds of really stupid questions because he kept trying not to answer me. And I would say, well, thanks for that, but can you kind of explain this over here? This is the way I did it. He got so exasperated. In an email, I got him to admit that he just used the expense figures that his client gave him. That was our leverage. We had him right there because that CPA broke the law by not using the bank statements to reconcile, to do those tax returns. So Joe, in your case, a CDFA would have poured over those tax returns for the business and for the personal stuff to see what did not make sense. Right. And they would have asked a series of questions and said, hey, it was through my work that we were able to put this guy in front of a camera for deposition and ask him if he ever skimmed any money. No, really? Not even a little bit? Well, maybe a little bit here and there. Oh, he had skimmed $150,000 out of the business bank accounts. And because, you know, he thought I was stupid, Amy Lawson's really stupid. Yeah, okay, sure. Here you go. Here are the bank statements. Tell me how stupid am I? He skimmed. And he had to admit it because we had him. Right.
Yeah, hard copy does not lie. And it's just right. And that's your forte.
Yes.
It's following the tracks, you know.
Right.
And I wish I had someone like you at that time. We could have cleaned up and it would have caused me a lot less stress.
Yes.
And, you know, I had great ideas, but it is going to deaf ears. So get the right people around you.
Put the right people on your team. See, I'm not a lawyer, but the beautiful thing, I don't have to be a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. I don't have to be a CPA. I just have to be a CDFA, right? I just need to know what to go look for and then take my findings to the attorney, because the attorney's got the subpoena power and the power to get in that courtroom and make those arguments and say, look, judge, this is what he says, but this is what he does, right? Or mediation. In North Carolina, where I am, you have to go to mediation first. I don't know if it's like
that's
that
most states.
Yeah, which I think is a wonderful thing, because in North Carolina, it's called shuttle mediation, where you and your team are in one room and the opposing party's in another, and the mediator goes back and forth so no one can trigger each other, right? Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. As a restorative family mediator, I'm on I'm on a domestic violence mediation team, and we actually have two mediators, and we don't call it shuttle, but it's the same thing. And so we're both together, and all of our stuff is virtual. So we're in the virtual room together, and then we're in the next virtual room together. And so one of our jobs is to pay attention to the person. And then the other one is to ask the questions and make the, give the proposal from the other side. And so we work together, and it's all there to protect both sides, not just and I hate the word victim, but not just the victim of the abuser, but also the abuser. And there's lots of times when I am dealing with clients and I said, we're not going to share that information yet. And a lot of people think, oh, that's cool, we're going behind the attacker's back. And I'm like, no, that's not it at all. We are protecting them from losing their mind and getting all stressed out too. Because if we stress the other side out, then our mediation is going to be in a mess. We want to do the very best we can to keep our energy level and our anger and our frustration down all the time when we're dealing with this.
Right.
So I kind of want to sidestep for just a minute.
Sure.
So you have the RTT.
I do.
So now kind of tell us what that is and how it works.
Yeah. So RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy, was created by a therapist in the UK named Marissa Peer, Marisa Peer, like we're peers. And it's a combination of talk therapy, right, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and neuro-linguistic programming, which means we are what we tell ourselves, right? And then it's with hypnosis. So hypnosis puts us in a super relaxed state because our minds are brilliant, and our minds know the very cause of why we think we're not enough. Because most people, whatever they're going through their life, it's one of three things. I'm not enough, I don't belong, or what I want is not available to me. And in that super relaxed state, your mind knows the answer. So for people that have never been hypnotized, and particularly people of faith, for some reason think it's of the devil, it's mind control. No, it's not. I have to always educate people on, no, it's not mind control. Because when you're in a hypnotic state, it's that same state you're in if you're watching a movie or you're reading a book and you're so into it and someone calls your name and you don't even hear it. All right, that's that same mind state where you're super focused, you're super aware, and you're super just hyper focused. And so if I ask you a question when you're in that state, you know the answer, right? I can make you relax. Within 5 minutes, you're super relaxed, and I'll ask you a question. Let's go back to a time where you did not believe you were enough, and you're going to describe it for me. And you don't relive it, you just describe it. It's like watching a movie, like you're the director, and you're just describing this whole situation. Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Are you inside or are you outside? Are you alone or are you with somebody? Now look around the room, look around that space, and you tell me what you see, what you hear, what you are experiencing. And man, it just comes right out. Comes right out. And so we do that at least 3 times. And then at the end of that part of it, I have them in their mind, imagine they're holding their hands like this. And there are these 3 scenes stacked up like DVDs. And here they are today. And I say, tell me how these 3 scenes created you today. And they always know the answer. They always know the answer. Mm-hmm. And the sad thing is it usually happens to children. If they go back to a time before they were even 7 years old where something happened. In some cases, it wasn't intended to harm, right? But other cases, it was harmful, terribly harmful. Probably the most benign case I have, it really impacted a woman. She had a very loving childhood, that's how she described it. She played small her whole life. And she wants to start this company. And she did the groundwork, but then she just kind of stopped. And she came to me and she said, I don't understand why I'm stopping. Do you know on her graduation day, and she had lovely parents by all accounts, her dad said to her, don't you forget where you came from. Don't get too big for your britches. And it just took her back because she worked so hard her whole life academically. And because she loved her father, she didn't want to let her father down. And then he passed away. So then she really felt like she couldn't step out and be bold and be big, right? About with her ideas. One session, she's kicking off her company. She's like, I did not realize that one scene squashed me all those years. She's 60 years old now. So, and again, it's remarkable. It changed my life. That's how I got into this. For those who are interested, I grew up in a super abusive situation, horrible. And it was all entangled in religion. So I grew up with people who were, those who didn't actively drink were closet drinkers, prescription medication junkies, pedophiles. And I had been in therapy for a very long time, more than 10 years in the last stretch. And although I grew a lot, I hit a point where I was essentially having the same conversation after 10 years. And I said to my therapist, I love you, but I need a tool you don't have, right? And so I went to my best friend, Amazon.com, and typed in, because I knew the thoughts in my head were lies, but I couldn't hold the truth long enough to make the changes in my life. And that's why affirmations don't work. Because affirmation doesn't work if deep down you don't think you're worthy of it. You got to think you're worthy of it first, and those affirmations will work. So I discovered this book by Marissa Peer called Tell Yourself a Better Lie. Also, oh my God, I know what's in my head to lie. I got to read this book. And reading that book, she referenced another book of hers called I Am Enough. And I read that book and I knew I needed to have an RTT session. And I went to her website. I found a therapist in the UK. Here's my criteria for choosing my therapist. I wanted a woman, number one, because the biggest abusers in my life were men. I didn't trust them, right? And then her name was Pippa, and I thought that was a great name. That's how I chose Pippa Hancock. That's how I chose her. And we had a session of Zoom session. She's in the UK, I'm North Carolina. Changed my life. I had 2 more, bam. And I said, oh my God, my clients need this. They will get through the divorce process so much easier if we can get to any root thought or limiting belief that makes them think they're not enough and they don't deserve an equitable settlement. Because a lot of times they don't, right? Particularly if they're married to an abusive person. They don't believe it. You got to believe it. And so I became certified. 500 hours is what it took. And I was trained by the woman herself, Marissa Peer, and launched it. And there's a friend of mine here in Greensboro who's a marketing person. She's like, you need to offer RTT as standalone. And so I was like, I never thought of that. So now I do. For people that aren't going through divorce, but they're married to a narcissist, or there's any narcissist in their life, boss, family member, neighbor, someone they just can't cut out completely in one fell swoop, I offer RTT for that. I have a 90-day course called Unstoppable You. And for people post-divorce, or as I said, any relationship with a narcissist you're trying to unwind from your leg, right? Because that's what they're like. They're like a snake around your leg.
Right. I was thinking throat, but yeah. You can't breathe.
Yeah. And every time you think you take one step up, man, they tighten their grip and they wind around your leg even harder and they pull you down again. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see that a lot. I have like 3 or 4 clients that just kind of pop up into my head that they just feel like they're being pulled into quicksand. And that's what one of them said. It just feels like I'm being jerked into the quicksand.
It is. And I will say, and I said this to you, Tina, Joe Huggins says, CDFA with RTT and a divorce coach, oh my God, unstoppable combination.
Right. I agree.
Because Tina does things I don't do and don't want to do, right? I'm in my lane and my lane is powerful. My lane and her lane together, bam, super highway to getting your life straight.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Since we're talking about financial abuse, I have one more.
Yes, please.
Which is a huge one, because I love my kids. And through the marriage, when there was so-called excess money from wherever, some of that went into the kids', and I have 6 kids. So it'd go into their investments, into their bank accounts and that kind of stuff. I was never the custodian, of course, because the ex had her name written all over those for control. And I tried my darndest through court to get that resolved, because all the kids were in their 20s at the time. So, you know, custodianship is long gone by that time.
Yep.
The but is she was not willing to sign it over to the kids, and that I know of. I don't know any way around that. So there could be a legal way to go, oh, Joe, I got the perfect answer for you on that. I haven't found that yet. So to this day, she still has her name on custodianship if the money's still there, unless she spent it along the way. And I don't know that.
Okay, so depending on the type of account, if it is a true custodial account, when your kid hit 21, doesn't matter if her name's on there or not. Age of majority, she doesn't matter. Now, before age of 21, she can pull money out of that because her name is on it. If it's a joint account and her name is on it, that she can pull money out of any time. It's going to be up to your kids when they hit the age of majority to take her off. But you know what?
Okay.
She's probably manipulated them too, right?
Oh man, yes, brainwashed them. I've told them, hey, you need your money. I worked my tail off for that to, you know, and oh well, I've never seen it before, so it's like I never had it. And I'm like, oh no, don't make excuses. That's your money.
Yeah.
They needed it for college. They needed it to start their families.
Yes.
You know, they already have kids and they never got to touch it.
And you know this, Joe, having been married to a narcissist, they are so charming, or they can be so charming. They can be so charming and so manipulative, and they can make people think they are the victim, right?
Often.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the things she probably said to her own children about why there's no money in that account.
She blamed it on me.
Of course.
Your dad.
Yeah. And I was there. I got to go through very screaming matches with him and his lawyer where he wasn't worried about his money. It was his kids' money for the longest time. But we're winding things down now. So is there any advice, Amy, that you want to give our viewers?
Yeah, I have several pieces of advice. Number one, if you're even contemplating divorce, reach out to a CDFA, because I can help you figure out ahead of time what you're entitled to, right? And I will help you fight for what you're entitled to. Now, if someone comes to me and says, I want to take him or her to the cleaners, I'm like, go to someone else. That's bad karma. I don't want that karma, right? But I'm going to help you fight for what you want. Number one, get a divorce coach. Number two, because I can't do the coaching part. I do considerable hand-holding, granted, right? But if you got a team of strong people, hey, and my advice in North Carolina anyway, is you hire us through your lawyer. You pay us through your lawyer. That way, every bit of work we do is privileged. And I don't know about the state you live in, but that's a simple way to find out, right? If it's privileged or not. And also, if you're going through divorce, you're going to be okay. Let me just look in your eyes and tell you are going to be okay. You have to do some things, though, to help yourself be okay, right? And RTT is part of my intake process. That's number one. We're going to book you in for a session. And so you're going to walk this path. You're going to navigate this process knowing you are enough. And let me say this, the mind learns by repetition. So at the end of every RTT session, I make an audio, and my clients listen to that audio at least once a day, every day. So can you imagine? Get you through the problem, and then we're wiring in the truth. I am enough. I am worthy. And they go through that entire process. I am enough. I am worthy. You make different decisions when you tell yourself you are enough. And you are.
Very good.
You're born enough.
Very good. Yep. And so, Joe, any last bit of information for the viewers?
We're out of time. Until next time, there's plenty more stories.
How do we find you? How do we find you, Tina?
Okay, so you can find me through my website, which is divorcecoachspecialist.com. You can reach me by email at coachtinalynn@gmail.com. That is, we'll see if I can remember all the letters this time. Last time I could, COACH TINALYNN@gmail.com. And how do we reach you then, Amy?
Yeah, I'm super easy. Amy at lawsonfinancialgroup.com. I'll repeat it again. Amy at lawsonfinancialgroup.com, all one word. My website is lawsonfinancialgroup.com. I write a blog. The blog is awesome. It's a way through. If I could take just a couple seconds. One of my girlfriends bought the book. She was going away on a trip. The book came to her house. Her husband opened the box and said, "Oh my God, Lori, what are you trying to tell me?" And she's like, "No, my friend Amy wrote it." Her husband read it. And he said, "Oh my God, my mother needed this. My father left my mother with 8 children and she didn't know what to do." And he said, "Your book is a way through." So what I did with my book is I took my blogs, I compiled them and wrote my book. And just to tell everybody, you're going to be okay. There is a way through. Just believe in yourself, hire the right team, and put one foot in front of the other. Know you're enough.
Yeah. And so if you're in a domestic violence situation at present, if you're in the UK, it's 999. Call 999, get the police there. If you're here in the US, it's 911, get the police there. If you are in a relationship that has domestic violence, please get a hold of the domestic violence hotline at 800-799-7233. That number again is 1-800-799-7233. We want to wish you a healthy, happy life, and you can get there from here, just like Amy said. You can do this. You've just got to take the small steps. Thank you, Amy, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure. It's an honor.
Thank you.